All right, we back. Welcome
All right.
back, Knicks and Bruises, episode 16. Before I introduce my guest, I just want to apologize for my hiatus. You know, the Knicks have gone through a losing streak since I've been on, and a huge winning streak. And I kind of didn't want to go on when they were losing and just compile the negative energy. And then when we was winning, it was a kind of like a superstitious. I didn't want to break the momentum, but I said
Right.
whenever we lose our next game, I'll jump back on. And here we are. My first guest back, Raphael Diaz. What's going on, man? Salute. I appreciate you
Hello.
jumping on.
I appreciate being invited on and all that good stuff, man. So much respect to you all your way, Tony Crow. Much
I,
respect, man.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. As always, Yo Black is time. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to you, Raphael. Shout out to the Podfather and MBK fam and the whole family. Um, Knicks and Bruises, man. The floor is yours. As you know, the guest is the show's for the guests. Let out that frustration from years past of all the pain we endured, the Knicks and Bruises. So where do you want to start?
Um, how do I start? And I'm gonna keep it brief because like there's a lot of bruises as a Knicks fan, right? There's a lot of bruises that you just I've learned through life to be just tough it out. So it's hard for me to go back and bring back those I see, those demons, so to say, right? Because I'm a little guy, I'm a young buck, and I don't know basketball yet. I just see Michael Jordan, I see Scottie Pippen, and I'm like, well, I'm from New York. Where's our guy? And so I see John Starks. I'm not too crazy. I'm not too convinced with John Starks, though. I mean, I think he's a great player, but I wasn't too like I couldn't pair him up. I couldn't compare him to Michael Jordan or to Pippen. I'm like, yo, man, we need somebody to face this guy. We got Patrick Ewing, but I didn't know much of history like Patrick Ewing. I didn't know about him, his Georgetown years. So, seeing Michael Jordan dominate the '90s, I was jealous of Bulls fan. I grew up jealous of Bulls fan because I felt like they had their thing and we didn't have. I think we have a center. I mean, centers. I don't know. They were kind of cool, right? They were kind of like, oh man, you got a cool center. I'm like, we got Patrick Ewing sneakers though. I guess they were kind of okay, but I was kind of jealous of Bulls fans. But I always said, you know what? I'm from New York. I'm not changing that. So that kind of kept me going. But
Well,
and
salute to you for that, man. It
so
was it was tough on all of us watching this guy. You
So,
know,
and one of those bruises was the disappointment of the '94 championship, which as a person, I never speak about. In my channel, I will probably never speak about.
Hmm.
But I will do it here, and I'll just probably do it. Like I've saw people wanted me, like, yo, man, what are your kind of bruises? But it kind of bothered me, and I took it kind of personal, and I kind of like, I don't always glorify the '94 season, the '94 finals. I don't really talk great that we made it that far because of how badly kind of ended, you know. And You sort of had the expectations that I didn't want. Is more than wanting to win a championship. It's sort of like now you're expecting it because you have Pat Riley as a coach. You have Patrick Ewing. So like there was a level of for me there was a level of like well we got for me, I didn't know yet about Houston, but I'm like, oh, it's Houston. We're in New York, so I didn't. My mind is not there yet, catching up. I heard about Mario Ellie. Well, who else they got? They got Mario Ellie, but I'm like, okay, we got all these other pieces, and I just felt like we were the better team that year. Like I kind of, maybe I disappointed myself for expecting the Knicks to win, but I was like, I really kind of did. some people might have thought that maybe some people went in thinking that we were going to lose, or maybe that it was going to go to 7. But I just thought that I was like, okay, the Knicks made the championship, and and knowing how gritty that team was, I just kind of sort of expected the Knicks were going to win that game. I really didn't think. I didn't expect for it to end that way. So that was me at heart as a kid.
I think most of us Knicks fans thought we were gonna win.
Yeah.
Um, just to give you some history, because you say you weren't familiar with his Georgetown days. He actually beat Elijah Wan for the national championship in college.
Mm.
So with that being said, people who saw that and witnessed that, they definitely thought, it was about to be another one at
Mm-hmm.
Elijah Wan's dispense. But yeah, he was Elijah Wan was the MVP of that series for sure. Um, Dominated offensively and defensively. Um, it was a tough one, tough
Yeah.
one. You got a salute over here if you can see that on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Salute to Chop Low
For
and
sure, for
Salas.
sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. 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 Hilarious. So
what else you
so
got
that
for me?
so like I said before, so I was jealous of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and then not to mention that I think the following year Scottie Pippen is going at it with Phil, taking the Bulls to the playoffs. I'm like, man, Scottie Pippen leading the Bulls to the playoffs, and then the Knicks faced them, and they're going back and forth, and I see Patrick Ewing get dunked on, and I'm like, oh man, this is just. I wasn't that was a bruise for me because I kind of didn't see it happening. It was a great play, and it hurt to see. But I was also, and I'm also growing as a fan. Like I'm growing. Like okay, I'm like, remember when you're young, you're kind of trying to figure. I'm trying to figure out what kind of basketball do I want to play. So I'm seeing all this. So I'm like, man. So, and then finally, finally, we get Allen Houston in our team, and I'm like, oh, okay, I like this guy. This guy can shoot. He has a nice stroke. He has a great shooting touch. So when I'm young, I'm like, man, I want to work on my shot. I want to be like Allen Houston because I feel like I at least have something. The Knicks have something respectable in the league, and that's why I'm a big fan of the '99 Knicks because we also had Latrell Sprewell. So I kind of like, and when you're young, I mean, you grow up fans of wing players. So, and in 1996, also you had Allen Iverson emerging in '96, and Allen Iverson, who's Allen Iverson? Allen Iverson crosses you over and he makes you jump to the other side. What? How can you jump to the other side? Yeah, because he's so fast that he could cross you over. He could jump. But the thing is that Allen Iverson in the podium, and that's why I'm a huge podium listener, he respected Charlie Ward from the Knicks. So I kind of like, oh man, we're kind of cool. We see Allen Iverson replaced Charlie Ward. So I actually like this team. Like I like, oh man, we got Charlie Ward, we got Allen Houston, we got Latrell Sprewell, and I felt complete at that time. I'm like,
Marcus Camby.
Yeah, Marcus Camby. Marcus Camby was kind of cool. So I was like, oh, we got Marcus Camby. He's all right. He's kind of good. He's kind of good. Marcus, he's a good shot blocker. But when you're young, you always look at, you want to look either be okay. When you're out in the park playing basketball, I'm gonna defend like Charlie Ward. I'm gonna shoot the ball like Latrell Sprewell. I'm gonna shoot like Allen Houston. I'm gonna try to go to the lane like Latrell Sprewell. Like, or have the kind of heart that he has for his team, like Latrell Sprewell. So I kind of was identifying with that kind of team more. Like I'm like, okay, cool, because like in the early '90s, like I liked Anthony Mason as a player. Like, oh man, Anthony Mason, he's so low key. But he's dope, like the way he handles the Brock and everything. So I like, but that was what I kind of liked. I kind of liked that '99 team, and but that '94 team, I kind of expected them to win. Like I'm like, we're New York, we got Pat Riley, and and we have enough. At that time, that's when I had that's when I trusted Patrick Ewing the most in '94. And when we didn't win, then I felt like we need somebody else to help this team win, to help this to lead this team to win. It can't just be Patrick Ewing. And I had concerns about because I felt like sometimes there wasn't a lot of passing the ball a lot. He could shoot the ball though. I really liked the way, but he was kind of getting slow when he got the ball. He started getting slower and slower, and the game is getting faster and faster. And I wanted to see more.
Let me ask you this: so you were okay with the Patrick Ewing trade?
I wasn't crazy. I didn't understand it fully, right? Because I didn't understand how to build the team. What's keeping the team? I think I was upset more like with that we didn't resign. I don't know if I was upset, but I was just like why would he resign Latrell Sprewell? Like, what's going on with that situation? We got Allen Houston. Allen Houston got signed to a big contract. That was a situation that I wasn't like understanding with 120 million. Oh, we're gonna implement zone because we're trying to I didn't understand zone. Why understanding zone like that? I'm like, why we bringing in zone defense? Oh, it's just like college. So I was like, well, when you go to the park, people play zone defense anyway. So I was like, okay, so all right, whatever. So whatever the league is gonna do, the league is gonna do. But trading Patrick Ewing, my core was Latrell and Allen Houston. If Patrick Ewing if we could keep Patrick Ewing, then sure, fine. I'm not gonna go against the tape. But I don't know. See, I didn't get to the whole semantics about him wanting to be starting and that whole thing. Like that's too much. Like that's another segment in itself, right? That's a conversation that could drag for another hour in itself because I really didn't. I thought for me, I was looking at the core of, well, you need a slasher and you need a shooter because look, and I felt like the league was going that way, and that we needed to start drafting those kind of players. But Patrick Ewing, I was sort of attached, but I started off with a quick disappointment with Patrick Ewing. See, you guys at least had Patrick Ewing when he was probably doing his thing. Well, actually, he probably was doing his thing since the 90, 91, 92, 93, 94. And he was giving Jordan hell, but I didn't see so much of that. Like, I didn't really, I wasn't following that hardcore yet. But, so it didn't hurt. I would say it didn't hurt me that much that it happened. But that doesn't mean that I was pro trading Patrick Ewing yet. But what did bother me was, like, how come Patrick Ewing doesn't give the ball away? That's all I care. Like, I don't care about the style of play. Like, I just want the Knicks to catch up to what was going on and win. Like, if he was willing to do what he needed to do, then I'm kind of cool with it. But didn't mean that that he needs to be traded, and especially for the kind of players. Like, I wasn't trying to trade. I'm not into trading a good player for role players or trading like. For example, like Dennis Smith Jr. got traded this year for Derrick Rose. Like, that's a respectable trade in the league. Like, I'm like, you know what? If you're Dennis Smith Jr., you leave your head high. Like, you know what? I got traded for Derrick Rose. I can live with that. And Derrick Rose can vice versa. I got traded for Dennis Smith Jr. in the second round. Like, it kind of works. It's respectable. You got to respect people's resume and everything they work for. Like, that's what matters. So, like, when he got traded for, like, whatever it was, like, it's gonna leave. You either do it when they're both respectable, but don't do it like the way it was done, because then you're gonna say, "Wow, you really didn't respect him." Because not only did you trade him, you traded him for what? For who was it for? Like, I don't even know.
I'm not for certain.
Yeah.
For some reason, excuse me. Vin Baker comes to mind, but I'm not. I wouldn't bet money on it. I'm not for certain.
Right. Right, and then and it wasn't the team he wanted to trade for. That's what
That
today's
was the
league.
thing.
That's why today's league is important because, like today's league, some trades just make more sense for both parties, and it shows more integrity now. Players are demanding more integrity to their name,
Or
to
you should say all three parties.
all three parties. Well said. So right, so but the integrity matters. So at that time, the Knicks didn't show integrity, and this, that, and the third. So I think that's the component that possibly y'all alluded to. Like if there was a interview where Patrick was talking about, hey, I had teams I could have signed to. Like I don't know if you heard that. Like he made an interview like, hey, I could have signed to Golden State. I could have gone there, but I chose to stay with New York, and the Knicks didn't show that kind of loyalty right back. Like if they want to trade him, hey, listen, Patrick, would you like to be traded to another team? What team would that be? And whatever you get, whatever he wants to go, we should trade him to that team. Like that's it. You gotta give him his just due. So, or if not, keep him and have him at a request a trade, whatever the situation. So
yeah, a lot of people. First of all, excuse me for the phone call. That was actually my Nick rep because I'm trying to see what's going on to secure some playoff tickets.
Oh, nice.
That's neither here nor there.
Nice.
What I was gonna say was a lot of people think that the trading of Patrick Ewing was the beginning of the worst, the beginning of the bottom. It was all downhill from there. A lot of people call it the curse. But I do agree that Patrick also did not handle the situation well, which in turn made it ugly on both sides. They both could have handled it a lot better. But
my whole thing is that he's getting older. I'm not saying that we should trade him. I'm not persuading it, but he's getting so we're gonna be bottom out no matter what. You know what I mean? But if you're saying it's a curse, then I can sort of see that because you traded him to a team that you didn't want to trade, that he didn't want to be traded to. So absolutely, that holds weight. So it is what it is. We're better today. We're better. We learned from our past, and that's all you can do and move forward. Trade the guy to who you gotta respect it, and maybe that's. I mean, I'm not gonna get into a whole semantic, but that's what it is. So another Knicks, right? So that was a bruise for me, and that was the best way I could have done it. A Knicks now. So now that happened, right? So I don't see Allen Houston. I don't see Latrell Sprewell. Patrick Ewing is gone. Charles Oakley is gone. Mason is gone. Mason got traded. Everybody's gone. I took a timeout. I'm coming back. I'm getting back into things. Isaiah Thomas is a general manager. Okay, great. Cool. Isaiah Thomas, I learned 10 years afterwards that the Knicks wanted him to be the point guard while Patrick Ewing was here. Oh, great. That's kind of cool. All right. So then I'm like, all right, cool. So what's going on? So he's coming from Toronto. He drafted Tracy McGrady. He drafted Damon Stoudemire. So, all right, we got a solid guy. Right? Okay. Let's look at the situation. He drafts Shannon Fry, Nate Robinson, Trevor Ariza, David Lee. All right. I see this. He keeps talking about, and what I'm hearing through the media is, in New York, you need stars. You can't just build like that. You got to make a move. He keeps talking about that. So I'm like, all right, so bam, we make a trade. And here's where I'm conflicted with this trade, with this situation. He hires Larry Brown. No, it was Lenny Wilkin, and then he hires Larry Brown, right? Now, my whole thing is either you not hiring the wrong coach or trading for the wrong player is my situation because, like, I don't care who's going to be the coach but it got to work. You can't just – so he traded him for Anthony Hardaway, and he had a $25 million contract, and Stephon Marbury. At least Stephon Marbury is from New York. So I'm like, we got Stephon Marbury. Stephon Marbury starts to complain about Larry Brown, this, that, and the third. And Larry Brown is he's not respectful enough. And right before coming to the show, by accident, I clicked on YouTube how Phil Jackson was talking bad mouthing Kobe, like, and he was talking about how, the thing about Kobe is that he starts jacking up shots, and anyway, long story short, he tells to a reporter, "Hey, did you hear what Phil Jackson said?" I was like, "You know what?" I said, "If you know Phil Jackson, if you've been Phil Jackson long enough, you know that Phil Jackson does his coaching through the media." And it was hilarious the way he said that. So what I have to teach, what me and Fisher have to teach is to the other player is to have a tough skin. And, sometimes sometimes if I don't take over, you either win the game or you lose the game, but it falls on me. I'm responsible for that. So long story short, Kobe talks about how Phil Jackson coaches to the media. I thought Larry Brown was doing the same thing with Stephon Marbury, looking back. Like, he was back, because that's what a lot of these coaches do. They operate that way. They badmouth their star player first, and that's how they coach. That's the kind of coach you hire. These coaches, sometimes they either badmouth you or, I see Tom Thibodeau now. He doesn't badmouth. He actually talks well and very respectful and with a lot of intellect, and tells you how Julius Randle's working hard. So much props to the way he's coaching. But back in those days, back in the early 2000s, and probably even earlier than that, you always want to. The thing was to constantly critique and badmouth your players, so that when they get in the game, you see that fire in them. I think that was the philosophy.
I agree with you. I think it's like a Billy Knight mentality.
Bobby
a
Knight?
lot of these Bobby Knight, excuse me.
Yeah.
These old school coaches, they were strict, like authority figures. And I think that was the beginning of the league changing into more of a players' league, where you needed you started to see a lot of bumping heads. I mean, even Iverson said it about Larry Brown. Like they hated each other for a long time until he adjusted. And so
and you grew to love him. You grew to love him because of that. He's like, man, he's because you see that he had that fire, and when he was in game, he was ready to kill. He was ready to, and whoever's in front of him, and
I think part of the problem that occurred, and it happened for quite a long time, was not only did we go through coaches and GMs and front offices, but we never let a guy work the full term of his contract. So at some point, you gotta eat your loss. Well, I think they did eat their loss. You gotta stick with your decision and ride it out at some point. And I think that just compounded year after year. It was like we're paying 3 coaches in one season. We're paying 2 GMs in one season. So it just got crazy to that aspect. And some of the times it probably was out of people's control. Decision makers were overrode by somebody higher up in the chain without going into details of names. But that happened as well. But I agree. It was difficult. Even Lenny Wilkins, I think he wasn't that outspoken as far as like to the media, but I think he was more of a disciplinary coach as well. And these guys were Hall of Famers, had all the credentials in the world. I think Wilkins he might have been the all-time winning and the all-time losing coach.
Oh, right.
But he had a winning record overall. But these guys had accolades and experience and had been doing it for many years. But the players, it was a gap between players and coaches,
Right.
players in front office, and I think now you see where it's changed. Now the players, kind of have all the control.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Coaches are on a thin ice from the minute they're signed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kind of flip flop, but
Right.
it's interesting.
Right. Right. So now and so then that happened. So that whole situation, that whole Marbury situation, Iverson was able to adjust, but Stephon Marbury didn't adjust, and it was a huge scandal. It was a huge drama, and Stephon Marbury was fighting back, and you know what happened. It was a disaster. So then that washes the whole thing, everything that was being done, and that whole rebuild. And that whole rebuild, then. So I was like, man, forget that rebuild. That thing is over. But they were trying to do a rebuild, but it didn't work out. And then then the Knicks missed out on Stephen Curry. That was they stole. I felt like somebody knew that we liked Stephen Curry. I felt like we had somebody. Maybe we got backstabbed or something. I don't know what happened in that situation. So I was like, all right, cool. We drafted Jordan Hill, who had a heart condition. And I'm like, great. What are we gonna do here? All right. So then we fast forward. We're up to the Melo era. All right, cool. We're gonna give up a bunch of pieces for Melo and Amari Stoudemire. We got Tyson Chandler. We passed that whole Eddie Curry situation. So I was like, all right, cool. So then I'm like, all right, what are we gonna do? It was an exciting year. Yes, I like Jason Kidd. When Jason Kidd was here, it's great. Maybe again, we had a good point guard. Phenomenal year. Mike Woodson was a great coach. We finally made. I think did we make the playoffs that year?
With
With Melo, did we make the playoffs?
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, who we lost to then?
Indiana.
Oh, the Roy hit. Oh no, that was. Yeah, seeing Melo get blocked like that in that dunk. Oh man.
That was a bruise for me.
That was a bruise for me. Oh my goodness, because I never thought that would happen.
And we had Miami's number that year.
Mm-hmm.
We swept Miami.
Yeah, but we gotta talk about that a little bit. But seeing Roy Hibbert block Melo like that, oh man. Because I always thought Melo was like undefeated. You can't beat Melo. Like he can only beat himself. And he got stopped at the rim.
Yeah.
He got stopped at the rim. Well, what happened? Oh, he got stopped at the rim. I was like, oh.
And you could just feel the momentum switch. The momentum. Yeah. That dunk we would have won the game. It wasn't a game deciding dunk, but it was. You know what I mean? Like took the momentum right out of our hands.
And now and for me personally, it kind of created that whole situation. It bring that Patrick Ewing PTSD of, Ewing shouldn't have not finger rolled it. You should have dunked it, and then now Melo trying to dunk it, and now he gets stopped at the rim. So it kind of bring that PTSD of like, man, we always get close, but it's not in our luck or something. So, but then something phenomenal happens, and we have Phil Jackson, and I'm excited. I'm excited because, like I told you, man, I was like, oh man, Phil Jackson won a championship for New York. He won 11 championships. I remember the Bulls years in the 90s. So I was like, wait a minute. I was like, and not to mention that he did win championships for the Lakers. So I'm like, you know what, man? I think we're all right. I think we're going to be okay. He's been around, when you're around smart people, I got to give you a chance. And, at least. So we struck out in 2014 with the draft. We only won 20-something games. We draft Ron Baker, Anthony Early, a bunch of role players. All right, cool. 2015, we finally get Porzingis. And the reason why I'm happy about Porzingis is because, Mari Stoudemire was always hurt with Melo. So now it's not no more Melo and Stoudemire. Now you have Melo on Porzingis. And you're also hearing about Melo is finally invited over Porzingis over for dinner because he's playing that good. So I'm excited about that. And then I'm seeing history repeat itself. Phil Jackson is critiquing Melo and holding the ball too long, and Melo's not responding to it well. He's not catching it. He's not understanding that this is how Phil Jackson coaches. And apparently Carmelo Anthony's having conversations with Kobe about Phil Jackson, but he's not taking it to it. Like he's not adjusting like the way I expected, like the way Allen Iverson did.
It's parallel. I was just gonna say that it's the same exact scenario with Iverson talking with Stephon about Brown, with Kobe talking to Melo about Phil Jackson and how to adjust, and you got to buy in. But we're talking about two different players, two different eras.
Mm-hmm.
As the years go by, it was getting further and further away from that that way of coaching or people accepting it. But by this time there were scandals throughout college, with people saying the wrong thing, putting their hands on people. You think about our guy Sprewell, choking up his coach
PJ Carlissimo
for some comments. I think he said, "But put some mustard on the pass." You know what I mean? Like
what was the whole situation? I never understood. What was the whole situation with Carlissimo? I never get it. I never understood.
He basically was telling him that he needs to, play harder.
Like put some mustard on it.
Yeah, put effort into what you're doing. You know what I mean? And I mean, obviously, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I know he didn't just snap from that. Obviously, there was some type of history of them not getting along, not being respectful in a sense. Respect me as a man, even though you're my coach. But a lot of these coaches, especially the older ones, and this happens just in life. The older you get, you look at a 21-year-old who's technically a grown man, but in your brain you think, yeah, this kid, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because you of that age where when you was 21, you probably thought you was a man, but you still had a kid mentality. You got a lot to learn, So it's that, and it switched up a little bit as the years got on. You just couldn't do that anymore.
So that's what happened. Now I get it. So he probably pushed him too much. But the thing is, I don't kind of blame PJ Carlissimo because I kind of like Sprewell's talent. Like he's the type of player I would push him a lot because I like his intensity to the game. As a player, he's.
Think about it like this. Do you think Russell Westbrook needs to be pushed? Do you got to motivate him?
No, I don't.
At that particular time, I looked at Sprewell as Russell Westbrook. This guy gave 110% effort at all times. So certain things. How can you question my effort when you know what I mean? I give
very smart
110% every time.
Very smart take. That's a very smart.
It's things like that. I think and I'm not justifying his actions. I'm just maybe trying to put it in a perspective, if you will.
That's a great perspective. That shed the light, man. I actually learned something right there with that statement because my mind wasn't there through those years. I was just like a fan of Latrell's intensity. But you're kind of right. He was giving it 110%, and you can't question his intensity. That's the valid point. The only guy that you could possibly that people often question was Allen Houston's intensity. So maybe he kind of made that mistake, and in that team, Allen Houston was like, "Come on, man, we gotta get this guy going." But he shot the ball well, man. I mean, he's somewhat clutch. I could trust him. I mean, but so I was hurt with Phil Jackson's firing bothered me, and now really, I say that because
Before you continue, do you consider that a Knicks or a Bruce?
I almost want to say a Bruce.
Interesting. This is going to be interesting.
No, I know you. I'm okay with you thinking completely opposite.
No,
The reason
the
why,
floor is yours.
no, but the reason why is he is remember, like I said before, I saw Isaiah Thomas bringing Stephon Marbury, and it didn't work. It didn't work. So he didn't make that mistake Isaiah Thomas made. He's letting it be a rebuild just off the gate. Like, remember, Isaiah Thomas made a trade where he's like Marbury's $20 million contract and Anthony Hardaway's $20 million contract. So he didn't bring in bar contracts. So now Phil Jackson is trying to move on from Melo and say, you know what, Melo, let's move on from this and let's just wipe the slate clean and let's go. Because remember, at that time we were trading away picks. Now I was mad about him trading Hardaway Jr. for a pick that didn't amount to anything in Jerry and Grant, because the Knicks, he drafted Porzingis in 2015 and then he traded Hardaway Jr. And then the player wasn't even worth anything. So that's a mistake on his part. But he was making a lot of mistakes like that in the draft. Like, he struck out a lot in 2014. And so I felt like at that time, like, man, look, we kept Hardaway Jr. and Porzingis, we would have been all right. We would have had a core, and the whole Derrick Rose trade and this, that, and there. But now I'm not looking at his behavior. I'm not looking at what he's saying to the media. I'm not looking at
basketball.
I'm looking at what he's building through the players he's bringing in, the drafts that he's keeping, and so I'm looking. I'm like, okay, fine. They learned from their past. They're trying to move forward. This team has never kept drafts picks before. Okay, I see what he's trying to do. The bad mouthing coaching is not working with Melo. I see that too. I recognize. I'm like, oh snap! He's getting at Melo. He's coaching Melo, but Melo's not. It's not working. He wants to move on from Melo. He's telling him, "You're better off winning a championship with another team." Melo's all New York. He doesn't want to go nowhere. This is my home, and that's a situation in itself. So I see that. So that was the situation. So I felt like finally the fans, and then the fans were buying into it too, because back in that early 2000 era, like, if we didn't have anybody, if we didn't have like a star, the fans were like, oh, the Knicks are trash. They don't got nobody. Who's there? Nobody. So, once you have Allen Houston and Latrell Sprewell, and then you have nobody, that's why Isaiah Thomas had to bring in at least a Stephon Marbury, so that you can have fans, be like, okay, we got Stephon Marbury. We have somebody we can hold on to. So this was the first era. So that Phil Jackson was like, you know what? We don't have a Melo. We don't have anybody. What we have is players we drafted, and we're gonna build on through the draft, and we're gonna try to bring complementary players, and we're gonna start from scratch. We're gonna go to the rock bottom, and he was able to have the fans buy in. Also, that's what I started seeing. Like, people started accepting the Knicks because it's the Knicks, and not because, oh, the Knicks were able to bring in overspend for a star. You know, the Knicks. That was the kind of thing that I'm starting to understand, because that was the thing with the Knicks. That's why there was bad rebuild. A bad rebuild is when you bring in a bad contract. I mean, I'm pro bringing contracts so long as we can either get a pick and if that player can work. Like, you know, like I definitely was pro bringing contracts this year, last summer. Like, I'm like, yo, bro, if we can bring in a contract to help speed up this rebuild, absolutely. But I'm not gonna stop being a Knick, because, you know, you don't have to say. I'm not gonna be like, well, Isaiah Thomas needs to make a trade for Marbury because if not, then, you know, the Knicks are not good. Now, maybe if it should have been another player. I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. But
so let me before I you know, tell you my side of what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Let me just ask you: were you a fan of Melo or not so much?
It's not really Melo. It's the Melo trade that kind of caused the situation with me, sort of.
So you didn't like the trade?
The thing is, I felt like it was a lot at that time, and it wasn't enough. Like, we don't have enough with him. Like, I'm like, okay, we got Melo. We give up all these players, but we just got Melo because, remember, Chauncey Billups was gone.
I'm speaking about Melo as a player.
As a player?
Like, what were your thoughts on him? Or better yet, the Melo trade getting away from the Knicks. You was okay with that at that point?
Melo being traded?
Yes.
At that time, I wanted Melo traded too.
Okay.
And that's how I actually made my first video. Like, before I never this is what happened. I made a video in 2017 where I wanted to trade Melo, and I also wanted to trade Porzingis at that point. When Phil Jackson wanted to move on from Melo and Porzingis, I was on board. I was like, I'm with him. Let's move on. Let's move on. Salute, peace. Hey, salute, Sim. So
my guy, the Podfather.
So this is what happened. So what a coincidence. But so I make my first video 2017 December, and I was mad that they let him go, because I was like, I said, if I was Phil Jackson, I would have traded Porzingis. I would have let Porzingis be traded. I was okay with Carmelo being traded, and the kind of pieces that we were getting, because he started that. He started the whole, yo, man, let's get draft picks. This is a good draft. I bought into, like, bro, I'm still a Knick regardless. You have to bring in a Melo or a superstar. If we can get draft picks and a player, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? At that time, I started to understand, like, a rebuild. Like, I wanted to trade for, and much respect to Melo, much respect to Stephon Marbury and all those other players. But I wanted to make sure that whoever we bring, if we trade for a star, that they're gonna buy into our system. You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna listen to the coach. That it's gonna be somebody that can work with the coach, or else we have to fire the coach. Whatever it is, they're gonna have to buy into New York. You know, that's the first time I felt like I felt like Phil Jackson sort of started the whole thing of, you know, like, I felt like Melo wasn't buying into, like, letting the ball go for he was holding the ball for too long, and he wasn't buying into, like, letting the ball go. And that's history to Patrick Ewing too. Like, I had conflict with Patrick Ewing because he held the ball too long too, for my personal liking. So that's another situation in itself. Like, I see most of the time, like, these players, they just start holding the ball for too long, and I can see why they, you know, it's hard to rebuild with players like that.
So let me I gotta dispute a couple of
Please do.
things that you said, but I know that you're not alone in your views. You know, I remember, especially at the time, a lot of people calling for Melo to be traded. Um, a, a lot of people credit Phil Jackson for the turnaround of the culture, and giving him, you know, credit for not following the trend of past regimes of, you know, trading for all these stars and giving away draft picks and you know, sacrificing youth for it, past their prime stars and things of that nature. Um, and I can't give him credit for that. Uh, First off, I think that started a little bit before he got here with who was the who was at the helm right before Phil Jackson.
Man, I forgot.
Well,
Donnie Walsh. I know Donnie.
Even Donnie Walsh, you know, was forced into the move of going for Melo and continuing to add pieces. But he didn't want to do that, and he was vocal about that. He was vocal about that when he left. But me personally, I feel like it's like when guys give you credit for, oh, you're such a good father, you take care of your kid, you always there, and I'm like, that's what I'm supposed to do. Like that's what a dad does. Don't give me credit for something that I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
but the thing is, like again, but the thing is like in New York, the powers that be wasn't letting, like, it's hard to do what you want as a general manager. Donnie Walsh didn't even do what he wanted to do. That's what I'm saying. Like it's Phil Jackson was the first one to do it sort of his way, and it wasn't pretty. I'm not gonna say it was pretty, but Isaiah Thomas too was pressured. I'm not gonna look. I'm not gonna defend Isaiah Thomas, but I don't even know if he really even wanted to push a trade. Like that's powers that be. Those are the behind scenes of the pressure of New York and the corporate people and all this other stuff that Phil Jackson spoke about in 2017. That bro, like you can't just be a general manager and expect to do what you want because after a while, people get in the way and say, you know what,
but
you need to do this.
he succumbed to that pressure as well. Because if he felt the way he felt, he wouldn't have never re-signed Melo. Remember, he re-signed Melo.
Right.
Why do that? Why do that? And I can't disregard, you know, his actions away from basketball and, you know, the disrespect to players in the media, his own players. You know, now granted that was his style, but to me that as the league progressed, as we just talked about a little while ago, that doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean?
I can respond to that.
You got to keep that in house, which he couldn't do.
Right. You know who he is. He's an old school, right? Right. You know he's Bobby Knight. We're talking about Bobby Knight, but to respond,
but that's unacceptable in my eyes. I can't. You know what I mean? I witnessed both errors. Like for you not to recognize that.
But this is the thing too. Like to respond to that Melo signing, you have to remember that I don't want to say he had to sign him, but James Dolan is the guy that pushed the trade. That wasn't a Donnie Walsh trade. That was a James Dolan trade. So when you can't once you do a James Dolan trade, then when he becomes a free agent, to not make him look bad, there's pressure to resign him, especially when he wants to be in New York. And especially, so that's why he was even to push a no trade clause too. Like remember, James, I didn't even know if that was James Dolan with Allen Houston. I mean, maybe that's a history too. Like Allen Houston, with the $120 million contract, maybe that was a James Dolan thing situation too. Like that's not the first. I think that might be the second time that the Dolans got involved. Anyway, that's a theory that I don't even have the mental.
But that's part of my point. He succumbed to that pressure. You know what I mean?
Right.
If it was do it this way and these are my thoughts, he would have not re-signed Melo. Even the bad mouthing started before he re-signed him. Like that was where some of the confusion with me came. Even the moves of bringing in Joe Noah and Rose at the time, that seemed and felt like following the same the same trend of the past.
Let me tell you something. First of all, with especially about Rose, I felt like we should have resigned Rose. Not. I only say that because I felt like maybe he could have been would have been a good point guard around Frank, possibly. I mean, I would have wanted Chris Paul. I think that was you that actually came up with that. I mean, much credit to. I heard Simeon Russell say it, and that's what actually got me going in the COVID-19. I mean, it's April, and I'm listening to Simeon Russell say, I'd like to see Chris Paul, and I think he's telling me Chris Paul would be great with Frank, and but then I learned later, like months later, that was actually you that said that suggested Chris Paul, and even Jimmy Butler, and that's actually.
I appreciate that credit.
And when I said that, I'm gonna be honest because, like, that's actually what actually drove me to say, "Oh, I gotta go to Tony Crow's show because I'm huge. I'm huge when when people frontline their opinions, and you get people because people. You said it even when you called in. Because you were like a huge mystery. Like, who is Tony Crow? Was always my question. Like, who is Tony Crow? Who's this guy? I've never seen him Crow. But I always heard Tony Crow on the phone. But you let it be known that, hey, man, that was me that said that. And y'all were clowning me for it and this, that, and third. So I'm a huge fan of people who, when you call in and people clown you and you're like, oh, but now you got to change your heart. And so I'm a huge fan. That's actually what kind of drove me to come in. Like, I gotta show my respect because this guy, he's giving opinions that people are respecting down the line, and that's what matters to me. That's the kind of YouTuber I want to be. I don't, everybody gets into YouTube for different reasons, but it's the opinions that actually that moves me forward. I'm like, man, I like my own opinions, but sometimes I wish I kind of move sort of like the way you do because you could be more humble with it. But me, sometimes I feel like, I'm quick to snap back and be like, listen, you remember what I told you, dun, 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 dun. But your opinion is, I said, oh, man, if I could, tomorrow's not promised, but if I could at least have come through the show one time and talk to the guy that said I would trade for Chris Paul and I would trade for Jimmy, I would have signed Jimmy Butler when he was a free agent. I was like, I have to do that. So that's actually.
I really appreciate that because I definitely hold on to that, because nobody gave me a chance at that the first time I mentioned it. It was like it was laughter and clownery, and I'm like, I thought I was making valid points at the time, so I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, so sometimes I like to. I hold it against them, and like I'm ready to go to war sometimes. So I'm very. But that's actually what brought me to the show. So, but to move forward, remember. So Phil Jackson, I felt that when your boss is the guy that made the trade for Melo, I felt like he had little to no choice to resign Melo. Now, you could try to make an argument. You could work. You could do everything you can, but your boss is your boss, and that's what some people even complain about Tom Thibodeau and Obi Toppin. Like, bro, your boss drafted Obi, so like there's that beef that constantly is going. Like, yo, bro, but your boss drafted Obi. He drafted Obi. So that it's to let you know, like, your boss is your boss. You cannot try to be bigger than your boss. And if you try, it's not going to end well. And I think so far, if this, I mean, against Phoenix, I did like Obi's 6 points and 3 rebounds. I thought those were quality minutes. But it's not easy. It's not easy. Phil Jackson's boss, was traded for Melo, and he not only that he get resigned, but he was able to get a no trade clause at that.
But hey, you see that comment Sim made? But Scott Perry and Mills was able to trade Melo.
Well, after Phil Jackson was able, after Phil Jackson.
But think about.
I think it took time. Like, you know what it is?
No, it really didn't. Like, think of the logic behind it. Like, it's a feud between your star player and your general manager or president of basketball. You let your president go, and then months later, you get rid of the player. Like, it kind of made no sense. If and for the people who were Phil Jackson supporters, like, I would think you would have wanted Melo to be gone and then stick with Phil Jackson. Which, again, if that happened, I see your argument. But for you to let Phil go and then let Melo go, that really didn't make no sense. And for the pieces and players that you gave up for him, that's
a good point.
It was again, that was a bruise for me because it felt disrespectful.
I didn't think the pieces. Yeah, I didn't think that. I didn't think the pieces were disrespectful though.
Pennies on the dollar to me, personally.
Well, for me, I actually, you make a valid point that I because sometimes my feelings get in the way. But now that I think about it, it's true. Like, Melo was gonna be traded for Austin Rivers at some point. Like he was even Melo was trying to. This guy's trying to trade me for a bag of chips for like Austin Rivers or somebody who's not even worth anything. And not to mention, like, Phil Jackson was making bad trades. Like, he traded the J.R. Smith trade happened, and J.R. Smith that situation wasn't a good trade. Like, who did we get? You make a good point. So the pieces that who Phil Jackson was going to trade for, it didn't hold any weight. So that's a good argument. Maybe you're more right than that.
And one last point I want to make, and then back to the floor being yours. 2012, we get to the playoffs. We lose to the Pacers, right? The next year, Mike Woodson misses the playoffs by a half a game, end the season on like a 18-6 run. Phil Jackson is here. He's witnessing this. And then let's Woodson go. Like that's how he started his his decision making, by letting Mr. Mike Woodson go, who not only was probably one of the best coaches that we've had over the 15, 20 years at that point, but he was openly willing to learn the triangle, to teach the triangle.
Right.
So that rubbed me the wrong way. And then my biggest thing at the time through his tenure was coach. Step down there and coach. Right. If that's what you want to implement, you're the GOAT at this.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. We've seen it twice in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen you deal with personalities in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like I didn't think he had the credentials to do it, but he was outside of his realm. I was okay with him doing both. I was one of the few people that was okay with him coaching home games just to put his stamp on it. It felt like, to me personally, it felt like he was stealing money. and
But again, the way. But if you look at it, like Phil Jackson, I think. How do I say that? I mean, Phil Jackson does his coaching through the media, so he's gonna let you know what you're doing. Like he, I think there was one time, a couple of times where he talks about Melo can't take criticism. Like he doesn't deal with criticism, and criticism is what he does. This is that's what he's not gonna like talk to you. He's gonna just criticize you and have you recognize like you need to step up. Like he couldn't deal with the fact that that Melo didn't like the fact about hold and shout out to Melo. He's not holding onto the ball long. He took a year hiatus or two, and he's not holding onto the ball. He's playing good basketball. He's having a great finish, but I like the way he's playing now. But he was holding onto the ball too long. Even OKC playing in OKC.
I think he adjusted. I mean, granted, the 2012 season, obviously, he had guys that he looked up to and respected on that team. So that that changed a little bit. I mean, that's understandable. But even that next year, when we just missed the playoffs, that was an injury riddled season. But he had made that adjustment by then. You know what I mean? Like
no. To let go of the ball. What
absolutely under Woodson. Quick decisions. That was the thing Woodson put in his head. So I think he made that adjustment by then. But then he reverted a little bit. But I mean that if you want to justify Phil Jackson, he coaches through the media. I could justify Melo holding the ball a little bit. Like that's his game. You know what I mean?
No, and also the game was getting away from him too. Like this is a thing too. Like look, I like Melo's game now. Like this is the thing that started rubbing me wrong with the Melo because Mike D'Antoni. I'm not saying that he's a phenomenal coach, but even he walked away because of Melo. Like it was because of Melo, stubbornness. That's strike one. Strike two. You hear Phil Jackson talking about Melo's holding on to the ball too long. Well, then come down here and coach. You don't have to come down there and coach to stop holding on to the ball for 3 to 5 seconds and 8 seconds. You need to let the ball go. That was I feel like that was, and then he gets traded to OKC, and he's talking about not wanting to come off the bench and also holding on to the ball long. And his style of play, plain and simple, isn't beautiful basketball like it is now when he's playing. He's playing beautiful basketball.
I don't know, man.
And a lot of people were trying to encourage him. A lot of people were encouraging him to be this Melo since Mike D'Antoni was with the Knicks, coaching with the Knicks, to be a small forward / power forward, to not hold on to the ball so long. I think Melo, Mike D'Antoni wanted him to coach more, to shoot more threes, and he's doing all that. But I'm not going to act like that wasn't a process that he needed to change. That wasn't easy. And especially when you're at home and you have your favorite player, wearing a Melo jersey was respectable in New York. As well as Porzingis. I kind of like Porzingis myself. But long story short, that's
one last statement. You know, and it's rhetorical. It's a statement. But people had the same argument with the great Michael Jordan and also the great Kobe Bryant. And granted, I know first comment, Melo ain't no Michael Jordan, Melo ain't no Kobe Bryant. But again, that's why my argument stands. Come down here and coach. because now you come down here and coach. Now you can put all of the onus on Melo. I'm here. I'm on the floor. I got the track record. I did it with MJ. I did it with Kobe. You, you understand what I'm saying? But from you up here, instead of on the court with me and showing me and walking me through this and making me be the greatest player I could become, like if he would have did that and it didn't work out, I would have championed Phil Jackson because the history shows he's done it before. But not from up here.
Well, first of all, you making valid points, and I feel like possibly through these all conversations, I didn't acknowledge that you're making valid points. So let me just put that out there. Like, those are valid points. Those are valid points that Phil Jackson should be held responsible for. But it wasn't just him. And a lot of it had to do, Melo, with wanting to improve and wanting to change. And it's not like before he got there, he was willing to change for Mike D'Antoni. He let Mike D'Antoni get fired because of him. So I'm not going to make Melo look like he's innocent when he had a head coach who is asking him to change. And I don't know, for whatever reason, he didn't change. So maybe you have an argument. But what I saw from before, I'm going from my eye test. My eye test said he let Mike D'Antoni get fired. He wasn't willing to change. So now I'm supposed to believe that he's gonna change for Phil Jackson when the league was becoming more of a players' league, and he's the king at that time was probably king of New York. I don't possibly
who becomes more vilified if Phil Jackson's the coach and Melo's the star and it doesn't work out.
Melo.
100%. Like he has to adjust. You can't have Phil Jackson on as your coach and you the star player and you saying I'm doing it my way as the player. I'm not listening to you. That's not nobody. No player in the history of players is gonna do that.
You make some valid points. You make some point about he should have been down there coaching. He should have been more involved. But I don't know if he could technically been involved as much as he could be. I think it's just very debatable at his age. I think his age was getting the best of him, and at heart, I think he wanted to be present. But I don't know. But I definitely he definitely was trying to coach him with it's like, listen, if you could just stop holding the ball for so long, the offense would be better, and I think the triangle would be working if you would be. But I mean, I don't know. That's a whole beast of a conversation.
I can't believe this is turning into the Phil Jackson podcast. But right. I mean, I got a few. Even the fact of you hiring coaches, but then trying to implement your system, like it continue. It's not even just the fact that he wouldn't come down, but you also not letting the coach you hire be their own player or be their own person. You know what I mean? So I think. I don't know. It's a bad taste in my mouth for that whole Phil Jackson era, and then just to bring it back a little bit with the Mike D'Antoni. I have to admit I have bias personal prior to the Melo situation with him and Stephon Marbury. Like that is one of my biggest bruises as well. His D'Antoni's treatment of Stephon Marbury.
I don't think I remember that. What happened? I mean, you're gonna have to remind me. What happened with him and Marbury?
So, whatever happened in Phoenix, I'm not too familiar with. You know what I mean. But yes. Remember, he was in Phoenix, and that's how we got him, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so D'Antoni was the coach there. They had whatever problems there.
Right.
So now, fresh off the Isaiah era, you're bringing in Mike D'Antoni, and that's the number one question, right? For the whole summer, how are you two gonna get along? How what happened in Phoenix? How is this gonna work in New York?
Mm-hmm.
Now, D'Antoni is coming out and saying all the right things. Clean slate,
Right.
passes in the past. I like Marbury, blah, 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 etc., etc. Come game one, did not play. Coach's decision. We talking about
Mm.
we talking about 25-5, I believe his career stats are. Like
Right.
numbers that those are MVP numbers. I don't care what anybody says. You know what I mean? Consistent all-star numbers for sure.
Right.
All NBA numbers.
Right.
Like career stats, 25-5.
Mm-hmm.
And you do this to this player and you don't even tell him, hey man, whatever the reason, going in a different direction. I want to see what I got with these other whatever your reasoning is.
Mm-hmm.
You say nothing to this player and have him sit on the bench the entire game and don't even address him.
Yeah.
So to me, right, like game one, I had disdain for Mike D'Antoni, and it got worse, until they eventually traded Marbury. But that right there, and I dealt with it. I lived with it. You know what I mean? I still was a Knicks fan. Obviously, we had the Duhan situation, which a lot of people, I believe, undervalued Duhan as a Knick. I think he had a decent, solid career as a Knick. But yeah, I just think that situation in particular put a sour taste in my mouth. So me looking at it with Melo, I know I have bias. I you know what I mean? Like Melo may have been wrong. I can't really, but right. I had bias from the previous situation with us.
I did it because all I saw was Mike D'Antoni. I actually overlooked the whole stuff on Marbury. I didn't even honestly. I might have just overlooked that whole year. I'm like, where? Because the whole Larry Brown, I think I took a time out after that with Larry Brown and Marbury beefing. And then that whole scandal, I was like, oh man, this is just too much for me. I can't. So I was just like working and going home. But but what started creating another situation with Melo is, you had Knicks players talk about Melo, and there was like the LeBron and Melo comparison. I think Tyson Chandler like played with. I don't know who was it a player that played. Somebody played with both Melo and LeBron, and they were saying, "Well, LeBron definitely wants to win. Melo, you like
J.R. Smith."
I don't know. I mean, J.R. Smith was one of them, but I think it was before J.R. Smith got traded. It was somebody. I think Tyson Chandler spoke about Melo, and it wasn't like too good about Melo. Like, they started to hear players talk about Melo, like getting jealous of Jeremy Lin, Amari Stoudemire, and Melo. Like you started to hear that happen. So you hear the Jeremy Lin jealousy, Amari Stoudemire. I don't think Amari Stoudemire was crazy about Melo. And then Mike D'Antoni gets quit because he can't coach Melo. It's like I can't coach this guy. He's not listening to me. He's gonna do whatever he wants to do. This is what I'm working with. This is like I'm not just hearing it's not like I'm just like listening to the coach. Like, oh man, he didn't listen to Mike D'Antoni. No, there was a lot going into it. Like now that my memory serves me, like it was a lot.
He wasn't perfect.
So and that's what I'm trying to say. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like it was a lot through. It was like the Jeremy Lin. What's going on with Amari? Why is Amari Stoudemire not clicking? Tyson Chandler. We got Tyson Chandler. Great. So Tyson Chandler is also not speaking too well about Melo. And look down the line. Even Chauncey Billups didn't talk too well about Melo too. To be honest, and then And then so I'm not sure if he's this guy that really wants to. Even though you make a good point that Phil Jackson should have came down and coached the team. If you want to come down, good point. You make a great point. That's a great point. But I also don't think he's this guy who from what the players are talking about, he's this guy that wants to win like that. Like there was questions of does he really want to win or if he's just happy to be in New York. Like
I've never heard that from a player. I've never heard one player say that. I've heard numerous people in the media say, did he want to win or did he want to just get money and play in New York? I think I lost you. Let's see if he gets back. But yeah, I've never heard any player say Melo doesn't want to win. He only wants to be in New York. Let me remove him for a second. See if he comes back. But yeah, it's an interesting. Yeah, he's having some internet problems. Oh, here he is. Let's see.
Yo, I'm sorry about that, man.
Nah, you're good, man.
I'm glad you stood on, man. So
I kept talking.
My stream.
But yeah, I've never heard a player say that Melo didn't want to win.
Right. Sorry. So the media started saying that. So the media starts pushing that narrative. Does Melo really want to win, or is he just happy in New York? And then you start hearing about his wife, and she's doing a show, and I don't even know what show it was at that era, but like they're just happy to be in New York. And then Phil Jackson comes on board, and he starts talking about Melo is who he is. You can't change a leopard's spot. He is who he is. So then I'm like, wait a minute, what's Phil Jackson talking about? He's like, listen, this guy doesn't. So maybe I should have given you that backstory first. And sometimes that's how it is. But I'm glad I'm able to say it this way so that, so you start hearing about Lala and his wife and his show. So you're like, what's going on? Like, what show does she even have? I don't even care about what show she has. And you start to hear about he just enjoying the fruits of New York and so salute. What's going on around the middle? Salute, my guys. Salute everybody. Choplo, Sam.
Yes, sir.
Everybody's checking us out. So that's my whole thing about Melo. That he, you start to hear about Melo wanting. You hear these rumblings, and you hear the players too saying it, and and then you hear Phil Jackson talk about a leopard. So I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's being honest. He's like, oh, wait a minute, the problem is not Phil Jackson. The problem is probably more Melo, and he's just doing whatever he wants to do. And that's my perception. And maybe I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, and that's okay if I'm wrong. But Phil Jackson, listen, you can't change a leopard. You can't change a leopard spot. A player is.
We will have to agree to disagree on this one, but I love opposite point of views. You know what I mean? So no shame, no.
I don't mind. Maybe another time we could bring this conversation up.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely, we would do a whole separate video on it. Yeah. I want to move a little bit forward. One, do you have any more Knicks and Bruises going forward, or do you want to?
No, that was it. That was it because that was it, man. Because I think after going forward after that, no, I'm able to keep pushing forward. I'm able to keep pushing forward. I mean, I know about the Frank Ntilikina draft. The only thing that bothered me about the draft, about drafting Frank Ntilikina, because like I'm growing up, so I'm like, okay, great. Like we had Charlie Ward, but like listening to people, the biggest problem that I had about this whole drafting thing now is that you start to listen to people saying, we don't like veterans. You start to see people not like Jared Jack. You start to see people not like Emmanuel Mudiay for whatever reason. I mean, granted, he's not that great, but But if the Knicks want to revamp his career and try to do something for his career, and also improve Frank's play, but I couldn't at that time. We couldn't understand what Frank is, what kind of player he is. We know that he was going to be a Marcus Smart prototype. Like he was expected to be good in the triangle, but we knew that he was also too raw on offense. We knew his defense is. I'm mad as hell. His name really is Raphael. Yeah. No. My middle name is Elias. I'll talk to you later, Greenhouse. Yeah. My middle name is Elias.
I should have screened that one before I put it up.
No, that's good because Elias is translation is for Elijah. So that's another conversation for Greenhouse. I have a conversation, but yeah. All right, Greenhouse. Look, I gotta get back to the conversation. I want to have fun, but so I'm mad now. So now I'm mad. Now I'm upset because I start to see what starts developing and forming of a divisive Knicks fan base. Like I start to see like, yo man, like why are we divided? Like what's up with this division? Like what's up with like liking Frank and hating Tim Hardaway Jr.? What's up with liking I mean, we're tanking. We were tanking. We were developing. The whole team is developing, right? I mean, granted, I get the whole point of the Tim Hardaway's contract, and it was a bad contract. But we are in the process of developing our players. We gotta see. You gotta be aggressive. So but also you also want to have core pieces like now we have some decent role players like Alec Burks this year is pretty decent. Reggie Bullock is pretty decent this year. Like it's a conversation like, man, who should we resign to build? And that's a good conversation. See, that's conversation that I'm like, but before we were having those kind of conversations, it was just anybody we brought in, like it felt like, man, like why we hate. I've never seen that ever because
let me just say that has not changed. It's still very divided amongst Knicks fans. Right. One of the pet peeves that I have today is the blaming of Elfrid Payton for everything, and no acknowledgement of contributions.
Right.
I'm not an Elfrid Payton fan. He's not one of my favorites. You know what I mean? It's nothing like that. But I acknowledge what I see when I see it. You know what I mean? Like if a guy does something well, I'm gonna acknowledge it. Right. When he does something bad, I'm gonna acknowledge that as well. I'm not gonna put all of the blame. It's like every year, we gotta have a scapegoat. Right. as a player, right. And we gotta hope that it's not the star player or our best player that is the scapegoat. Right. But every year there's a scapegoat. It's always division. Right. I mean, it kind of is what it is. But I try to I'm with you. I don't enjoy it. No, I mean, everybody is entitled to their opinion, but don't, let's not harp on it. Let's not get carried away with it,
Right. And that's what bothered me. So I kind of felt, I don't want to say betrayed, but I felt like people who grew up earlier with team basketball, like people who were, grew up in the 80s, 90s, I felt like they were sort of not being honorable about that. Like, I'm like, yeah, man, like you grew up in an era where whoever is good gets on the floor, plays good, and this, that, and third. Now you all of a sudden you're changing what's fundamental into like, let's have all the young players play. Like I'm like, yo, man, I just want to have young players. I don't care if he's good or if he isn't good. He needs to be on the floor, and I'm like, bro, like I don't even understand. So that I felt like that's one thing that I don't like that I've never seen before. I've never seen an era where people are saying, "Yo, man," and a lot of it was Frank Hive. I don't dislike Frank. I'm not mad at Frank. I'm okay if he's a role player. It doesn't bother me. It's great. He could be the 11th man off the bench, and maybe that's the third guard off the bench, or maybe that's the fourth guard off the bench. But I'm okay with it. Like, it is what it is. Like, I'm ready to move forward. Like, I'm not gonna harping on it. It's not gonna make the situation better.
Is the franchise still going crazy?
Nah, I'm actually.
I think winning cures all.
Yeah,
You know.
I've gained respect for actually for some of the Frank have. Like, I think they understand. Like, yo, if we're winning, if Frank could help us win, then he should be on the floor, and that's all I cared about. I felt like before that, like after Phil Jackson gets fired to now, like I'm hearing the yo man, Alfred, whether it's Alfred Payton, whether it's Dennis Smith Jr., whether it's Jared Jack, whether it's Emmanuel Moutier, whether it's Tim Hardaway Jr. And actually, I think that Frank should have been a backup two guard, and he should have been backing up Tim Hardaway Jr. Because the only two things that he's good at is shooting the three ball and playing defense. Let it go. Like, don't try to make him be a point guard and this other stuff, because it's not going to end well. And we want him to now. If you want to develop some other skills as second nature, fine. But like right now, who he loves to defend, bro. Like, that's who he is. He loves to defend. That's who he is at heart. And the second at heart is shooting those corner threes and shooting some three balls. He should have been shooting as many three balls. I mean, Tim Hardaway was shooting a lot of threes. But maybe if he would have shot less, he would have given him less minutes and would have given Frank his backup. Maybe we would have had a better situation.
Rumor has it that Frank was adamant about playing the point guard position and didn't like playing any other spot, and,
right.
and he would frequently say, I'm a point guard. And it wasn't until this year that, at least publicly, I heard him say, he's willing to take whatever role the coach feels,
And that's how it works, man. So unfortunately, that's how it works. Sometimes we get in our own way. That's how life is, man. Sometimes, we get in our own way, and if he wasn't in his own way, maybe he would have been a better version of himself now. But I like his play, man. Just play some defense and shoot the ball, and I'm glad that people don't have to go way out of their way to just defend Frank, like. And he wasn't making it easier for them, being that stubborn. So shout out to the Frank Hive. But before, I kind of had beef with them. I was like, man, that's not cool. That's not cool that you're gonna diss every. And then in the off season, you're hearing people happy that we didn't get any point guards because we got our own point guard. We got Frank. We this and Dennis Smith Jr. and that's what it is. But in terms of Alfred Payton is pretty solid. I don't disagree. I have looked to resign him first? No, but there was a lot of options that was in the off season. But if we landed Alfred Payton, then I gotta be happy with the contributions he's giving us, and that's what you gotta be.
So Ralph, I hate to. I'm not gonna cut it short immediately, but I want to kind of wrap it up. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna have probably ask you a couple of questions about the current roster, current regime, and then we'll wrap this thing up. And I definitely want to do another one and maybe break down this Phil Jackson.
Oh man, yeah,
the Tony thing. I think we could talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
But so my first question is, I think you brought it up a little while ago. So let's start with that. Our current free agents at the end of current free agents at the end of this year on our team.
Mm-hmm.
So the Burks, the Bullocks,
Mm-hmm.
the Taj, the who else we got? Who would you? Who do you think?
Alpha Payne is a free agent. Derrick
Yes,
Rose is going to be a free agent.
Peyton Rose. Who do we bring back? Who would you like for us to bring back?
I was surprised. Look, I'll definitely bring back Burks for sure. I'm surprised about how well Bullock is scoring. So if he keeps playing like this, then I mean, you have to see after you draft. So you want to ask me now, great, but you're gonna have to ask me this question again the next time we have another Phil Jackson conversation. So maybe a month from now, we're gonna have to have that Phil Jackson conversation. Maybe after the draft, we'll have this conversation again.
You think the draft is going to determine whether we bring back a Burks, a Bullock, a Rose, or Taj?
Yeah, because you have to figure out, like, we have 3 draft picks. We have Frank Ntilikina. Are we going to bring him back? That's a conversation. And then you say, okay, well, you know how it goes. Like then that situation turns into like, okay, how many spaces are left? There's only so many spaces in this roster. So, I mean
yeah, but I don't think our draft is going to determine that. I feel like we're going to draft best player available. However we move, position of need, but I don't think a rookie is going to determine the roster spot for any of these vets. I don't think a rookie is going to be able to do immediately what any of these vets would do. So I could see. I mean, I understand what you're saying just about roster spots and availability, but let's say we have without taking rookie contracts into consideration. Who would you like to bring back out of our own free agent?
I got a question. My whole thing is, how many in your mind? How many slots you in your mind is full?
I think we're gonna have to make a decision on. I think we could bring everybody back and make a decision on some of the guys that aren't in the rotation. So I think. I think
10. So you see 10. So you see 10 full.
Yeah, 10.
10 is already 10 is full.
Taken. Absolutely.
Okay, so then you have 5 available.
But part of that 10 is some free agents of our own. Like me personally, I would bring the whole roster back except maybe Peyton. I wouldn't be surprised if Peyton comes back as well. But if we're talking about who I want back, I definitely want Burks and Bullock back. Even if they become trade assets, you know what I mean.
Right.
But I would bring them both back. I love what Taj is doing, but I think he would be a late decision.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if I can improve, I will, but I wouldn't mind him, coming back in the same capacity. Frank, see, the thing with Frank is I would have preferred to trade him than just let him walk. But at this point, again, I probably wouldn't give him a player option. I mean, pick up his option, let him test the waters and see how that goes. Especially if these guys are still willing to take discounted contracts.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would run it back as long as we have enough space for one available, whether it be free agent or us using some of these guys as trade assets.
Okay.
To bring in another piece.
To respond to that, I see the Knicks drafting 2 players in the first round. Okay, so I feel 2 slots are already taken. So That's 13. Then I see Obi and Quickly. Now if we trade Obi, that's a conversation. The thing is, Tony Crow, I could keep talking, bro. Like this is this show. This could go on for another hour. So like, I gotta move fast. But like, long story short, Obi and Quickly for now. This is just like, just thinking. Obi and Quickly. I do see Frank being back because he's a situational player. So situation means that you're an 11th man and you're comfortable being an 11th man. So I see that's 3 slots. Frank, he'll be a defender. Hopefully he improves on the offense, and that's what will keep him in the roster. And players like that, maybe you need them in the playoffs. So that's 3 slots. Randall, Randall, RJ, Mitchell Robinson, Burks, Bullock. I feel like we're gonna draft a wing player this year. So I feel like it might not be. We may not bring back Bullock because we might bring in we might trade up for like a strong wing player.
And that's the way I feel like even though we have two first rounders and a early second rounder, I don't think that necessarily means anything because we may package all 3 and move up. You know what I mean? We may package all 3, move down, and pick up a pick somewhere down the line in the future. Like there's a lot of options, right. And with this particular team, you're gonna have, as a rookie, you're gonna have to earn your spot in the rotation.
Be very talented.
100% earn it. It don't matter how talented you are if you don't show it and earn it. Like you're not gonna get minutes based off of draft position. So what number you are drafted, you're not gonna get minutes based off of your college accolades. You're only, with this particular team under Tibbs, you're only getting minutes based off of your performance in practice.
And that's point blank period. And I feel like Reggie Bullock, I saw the Phoenix Suns game, and I saw Mikal Bridges, who you spoke about earlier, do what he do. And he's very quick on his feet. This guy's like 200 pounds, because I feel like the body type of Reggie Bullock and Mikal Bridges is very similar. They're kind of light versus a Kevin Knox. Kevin Knox. Kevin Knox is very strong, and I feel like now the Knicks are gonna go like Reggie Bullock and RJ at the wing. It's not a bad combination. It's not a terrible combination. If you want to go into a draft to envision to get somebody in the draft, you just want to get somebody who's light, quick on their feet, is strong, can defend, and that's what Mikal Bridges defend. Julius Randle at a quarter 3. I'm like, what is he doing? I'm like, and he's also quick enough to help you create a double team and he was creating situations for the Knicks. So I feel like the Knicks are going to go after somebody like a Mikal Bridges, and Reggie Bullock, that prototype of player. That's what I sense, that they're going to just go somebody in that area. So I'm not sure if Bullock might be back or Burks might be back. One of them might be gone, but I feel like they're going to bring in somebody like that so that Knicks are quicker. The Knicks are quick in their feet and can compete in this league and also have a long-term solution.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I just don't see. I don't see them definitively earning minutes over a Burks or a Bullock at this particular point. Like, and I'm just looking. I'm not talking about a player in particular. I'm just saying, as a rookie, it's very rare. Like you like even Bridges got what this year 4 for him or 3? Year 3.
3.
So he, you know what I mean, he had to develop into what he's doing right now today. You know what I mean? That wasn't Bridges' rookie year. That, you know what I mean?
Timeline.
He had to develop into that. So that's why in my brain, I'm not counting on a rookie to come in and necessarily be a rotation guy. Like, I think we're in a perfect position to look for a draft and stash guy. Look for somebody who has the talent or the projected talent, but whether he may take a year or two to develop, or maybe he's just under a contract overseas that you want to wait until that it expires instead of buying them out.
That's a good point. Well, the thing is, the Knicks did get Walt Perrin, who they spent like $5 million to go get, and we'll see. We'll see. I mean, you have to put your faith in him. I mean, you got Walt Perrin and Scott Perry, and that's a good conversation. I mean, you did draft. He was able to draft Donovan Mitchell at 13 and drafted Rudy Gobert at 28. I don't know what number he was, but it is possible to still find that player. I mean, Devin Vassell was drafted number 10. Aaron Naismith, 14. So that's a good conversation. I just feel like I feel like I'm only adding more minutes to this conversation, and I'm not trying to.
we good, bro. We good.
Okay.
I got next question though. Where do you think the Knicks finish the year?
This year?
Yeah. Position wise.
If we finish third, man, we're gonna be a problem.
You think?
I think we could. I think we could.
All right, that's best case scenario. I'm assuming you're not projecting that.
I mean, I wouldn't be upset if we fight, but I think that's when I think this team is playing with a plan. This team is playing with a vision. They have goals.
Wait, are you projecting third seed, or are you saying that's best case scenario? I agree with you if you're saying.
I think it's a little better. I think that's a little better both now, man. They are so good, man. This team is so good that if they believe they can be in third, I'm riding with them, bro. Like,
okay,
I'm riding with them.
I ain't mad at you. I think best case scenario we could do it. I think I mentioned that a week or so ago and got killed for that as well. But I said best case scenario. I'm not projecting. I'm actually,
there.
You know what? I'm actually lying. I projected fourth seed and got killed for it.
Okay.
And that was before we even got there. But I said it's a possibility. And here we are.
I'm saying that I want to put that in context. I'm doing that because this team has been proving me wrong, everybody wrong, day after day after day. I mean, it wasn't. So I'm not just saying it off the win.
Setting the bar high.
It's and it's not just because of the 9-game win streak. It's because this team cannot be taken lightly at all. And I'm not going to take them lightly. You know what? If they don't, I can live with it. But I'm going with the belief that this team could, and that this team really could be in the third seed and is a third seed team. So that means, if I'm saying that, like, I'm pretty much expecting you to be a third seed. So, bro, I believe this team is a third seed. It's a top 3 seed.
So, all right, this is going to be an interesting answer based off of your third seed response. Is there a team you prefer to play in the first round? And is there a team that you do not want to play in the first round?
Any team that we play fourth and down, I don't mind. I don't care. Like, if we play Atlanta, even though Atlanta's a great team, man. So shout out to Atlanta. They got a great team. Trae Young, Kevin Huerter. They got a great team. Miami, I would love to face. Those beefs. I feel like, and also because RJ got, Jimmy Butler. RJ got missed that layup,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he has a lot to prove. So I want to see RJ Barrett continue to become a better player, um, to stand up to the challenges. That's what it is about this team. This team constantly, when there's responds to the challenge, and that's what this team, we didn't believe this team was very talented, but with the good coaching and with they was able to use their talents to win games. So that's what
So who would you want to avoid?
who I would want to avoid pop in the first round.
First round.
I'm glad I don't have to play Philly first round.
Okay.
That's probably a team that I don't. I've heard other people talk about Milwaukee, but and maybe that's a valid point. But Philly so far, that Philly loss has stung. Some of those losses has stung this year. I don't know if losing to the Bucks has. It was a bad loss, and Randall was off, but those Philly losses, this year is like, I guess I don't know if I want to bear another one. So let's see. So let's see how that goes. But that is a team I'm looking to avoid. I wouldn't not avoid. I just wouldn't want to play them first round.
First round.
Yeah.
So me personally, I agree with you about Miami. I also will add Boston on that list. I said this about a month and a half ago. I would love to play Miami or Boston in the first round.
That's a good.
And people, are you crazy?
Because we got to know who we are. We got to know who are we like, and we got to see. We got to get to the nitty gritty of. So do you really want it? Do you really want it?
Even as a fourth seed, I feel like overall we would probably be the underdogs in both of those series. At the time when I said that, I wasn't even thinking about first round home court advantage. I was just saying I want to play one of these two teams because I think beating one of those two teams would solidify us.
And to your point, if we get third seed, we might play Boston. So if we end up third or fourth, it might be Boston or Miami.
If somehow we make it to the third seed, then that underdog gets thrown out the window. I think because whatever we got to do to hit third seed,
right?
The expectation is definitely going to skyrocket.
Right.
Believe it or not, the two teams I would prefer to avoid is Charlotte and Atlanta, to be honest.
Charlotte,
right?
Atlanta I could understand though.
People, and it's not because I think they're better. It's purely a matchup thing, and these guys, both those teams, shoot lights out.
Yes, no, that's understandable.
And that's good. One of the biggest, fears of mine. And I think we could beat them, like both of them. I think, but if they're on, it's gonna be a long night.
I don't disagree with you. And LaMelo Ball is one player that a lot of Knicks fans coveted, and I was more for Wiseman, but I did think that that LaMelo Ball was super talented, but LaMelo Ball, he's looking like a next Luka people comparing him to already, and I don't disagree with that. They have Gordon Hayward, they have Terry Rozier, Graham. So those four guards, you put any guard, it's full-time, 48 minutes of guards that can constantly score, and Miles Bridges is doing his thing too.
Even the end of the bench, even Monk can still come in and put up 13, 15 points, you know what I mean, off the bench on a random night. So, I'm not scared of them, but just in the first round, I'm looking at it like of the perspective of if we beat them and if we lose to them. So like obviously, I think if we beat a Boston, if we beat a Miami in the first round, our stock rises tremendously. Our overall view from from the outside, it gets highlighted. We lose to Atlanta or Charlotte in the first round. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, there go the Knicks mixing. You know what I mean? Things of that nature. So it's kind of like a risk reward type thing for me. I think what it does for us to beat a Boston Miami in the first round is so high, and what it could do a loss in the first round to a Miami. I mean, I'm sorry, Atlanta or a Charlotte. It's gonna be jokes, and I'm done with the jokes. Like we've dealt with enough of that over the years. But appreciate Raphael, man. This was a great talk. I appreciate you guys in the chat. Knicks and Bruises is back. I'm gonna try to get a little bit more consistent, 1 or 2 episodes a week. Um, Shout out to you guys. Your Black is time. One.